Third category, the reality of biological truth. Genesis chapter 1. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Or Mark 10, verse 6. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Any person putting themselves forward for public office who is incapable of grasping the most simplest of truths, that God made men and God made women, has disqualified them for running a popsicle stand, let alone a community, a state, or a nation. These are the simplest of categories that God gave us for our flourishing, and when they're blurred and confused and violated, that community, that state, that nation will face the destruction of confusion that follows. It's one thing to be confused on it yourself. It's another thing to foist that confusion on children who don't know any better and are looking to adults, trusting them to tell them what's true about the world. In speaking with one young lady who had her personal privacy and sovereignty violated when she was halfway dressed in her locker room, and a male came in the room, a fully intact, a biologically intact, mentally disturbed male stood 6 inches within her, stripped naked, and she's standing there half naked herself, feeling utterly violated by the adults that were charged with protecting her. Where's my dad? Where are my coaches? Where's the school administration? Why is it taking 24-year-old young women to stand up and lecture the adults about the simplest facts of biology? We've been blinded by stupidity. We've swallowed lies, and it's hurting our kids now. And out of fear of being called politically incorrect, no one's speaking up, and it's not helping anyone. Both those who are confused and those who aren't confused and having that confusion foisted on them. You know what Jesus said about adults that confuse children in relationship to him and his world? He said, better they tie a millstone around their neck and jump off a bridge into the lake. Jesus is very clear when it comes to this issue of confusing children, and we're doing it right now. 14 states currently have, quote, transgender health care shield laws. Among them, Governor Tim Walz's state of Minnesota, signing legislation to make Minnesota a, quote, trans refuge state. The language of the law that this man's state enforced on its people that he signed into office says, if a minor child has been unable to obtain gender-affirming care because one or both parents object, the Minnesota law allows courts to have, quote, temporary emergency jurisdiction over that child. Translation, the government can take your confused child away from you. That's legislation that the governor of Minnesota signed into law, and he's currently running for a national office. It's the same law that we signed into legislation here in our state. This is not only a violation of biological truth, it's a violation of the jurisdiction of parents' authority over their children. These are lines that cannot get crossed. These are violations we cannot be silent about. These are transgressions we cannot roll over in the face of. We must, if we're going to be faithful to Jesus, stand up and resist it with all of our might, because evil never stops. It must be stopped. If this ideology is not pushed against, it won't be 14 states, it'll be 50. Here is the truth that we need to hear. We do not get to make ourselves in our own image. We've been made in the image of God. And when we attempt or demand to remake ourselves surgically, hormonally, aesthetically on the outside, remake ourselves in our own image, it's called idolatry. It's called acting in the place of God. And nobody gets to do that, and it ends well for them. Here is the grace. If you're listening to this and you've wrestled with this or struggled with it because you've been lied to in your vulnerability, you need to hear from God Almighty, you were fearfully and wonderfully made. God did not make a mistake when he made you. You may be broken, hurting, confused. I get all that. That's fair game. But what we shouldn't do in response to that brokenness or confusion or hurt is to then run away from the one who made us, saying he made a mistake, we're going to make it all right now. The solution is to acknowledge the mistakes we've made or others have made and run to the one who made us to make us new. Because though you may have pierced yourself, he was pierced as well. And though you may have transgressed yourself with hormones and surgeries, he was transgressed and crushed for you so that your scars would not define you, but his would. Hey everybody, Pastor Josh here. If you enjoyed that clip, you can check out the full sermon right here.